Thank you. I'm your last speaker today, and I'm glad those who stayed here are still here. So I'll talk about a partnership model in Flanders, and as I heard, you raised some questions. I think this model answers some questions, some it doesn't, which is normal for models. Before I start, maybe 2 points. First of all, I never mention technology assessment in my slides, but as I heard it this morning and also in the afternoon, I firmly believe that what is done in Flanders in the process is really a technology assessment process. Especially the definition Robbie used on scientific, interactive and communicative process. I will show in my slides that this is really the case in the partnership model. And second, I already give you the conclusions of my presentation, not to go away, but for me the basic conclusion of this model is that both the strength and the weaknesses lay in the local approach. As you will see further on, this model is very locally oriented, and it has therefore a lot of strengths but also some weaknesses. So that's what I will try to explain. I will also give you a short situation so you can you know where I'm talking about, and then I give some strengths and some weaknesses, some discussion points, and then there were some things I didn't know, is this positive or negative, so I called it curious observations. So a little bit of the history. Actually, the same thing here as in Belgium, and I think it's not an accident. It happens in a lot of countries that you have decision making. In Flanders, in Belgium, the nuclear research and technology started in the middle of the 20th century. And there was some seed dumping and so forth. There was no awareness of the problems related to nuclear waste. Then in '72 you had the London Dumping Convention, which obliged the countries to look for a solution in their country itself. So in Belgium, you had in 1980 start of the Waste Agency, the National Institute for Radioactive Activity. And in 1990, there was a decision for the low-level waste surface disposal. The same as here in the Czech Republic. 98 potential zones were selected. The mayors got a letter, and they also, what's this? There was heavily contested a lot of protests, and then a few years later they decided to put it on the military side. I heard that that this was also the case, that you now have a military site in mind. But in Belgium also there was a lot of reaction, and this also created a block, as there was in the Czech Republic. So the government had no other choice than to start this participatory process to restart the decision making. So the Waste Agency, together with some universities, developed a process which I will describe right now, the partnership model. Communities were invited to step into this process without any obligation that they had to take the waste. So there was the idea was the waste will not come to your community. We come to you and discuss, and you can discuss under which conditions you will take the waste or you will not take the waste. Not curiously, only the nuclear facilities reacted. Only communities where already nuclear research center or nuclear companies were present reacted to this call. Other communities did not react. So it's a very similar project where these 98 potential zones were selected on a purely scientific base, geological basis. These are potential sites to an idea of combination geological possibility together with social possibility. And then there were 3 partnerships started. The first one is in the Walloon part, in the French-speaking part. There are two communities, Fleuris and Farciennes, and they made one partnership together. In the Flemish part, there are two neighboring communities. The one is 8,000 people, and the other is 30,000 people. They see themselves as rather different, so they also decided to have other partnerships, but neighboring partnerships, Mona and Stora, they are called. And clearly, the starting question was, if our village wants to waste, what are our conditions? So this is also what I heard from your presentation, a discussion. For now, in the start of the discussion, there will be no waste in our community, but we can discuss about the conditions that there will come a repository. The discussion will go on technical and societal elements. Societal elements also including a fund, and this was also raised a few times in the discussion. It's I think a reality that if you put a fund next to the responsibility a village takes, it makes decision making easier, which is a human thing, I think. If you say there is a risk, so we also put money next to this taking the waste. The mission, the tasks of this partnership was really to decide on, or they had the possibility to order studies. They were laymen, and they could say, we don't know enough about this and that. They could invite scientists. If the scientists said this and this and this are uncertainties, they really could order studies to go in more depth into these uncertainties. They had the task to design a project. Experts came with a project, but they had to think further and really design a project, and they had to communicate this with the community. It was their task of the partnership. And they really had to make a decision. They didn't have the possibility to say, we had a lot of discussions, and we had a discussion on the surface disposal, on a deep disposal, and we like this and safety, maybe there can be more research on that. No, they really had the task to say, we develop our design, we design our repository, and this is our idea, and if you do it like this, and you couple this social elements to this, we are willing to take the repository. And in this partnership, there were the people from the village, combined with people from the waste agencies and local politicians. You see here on the slide a little bit of the structure. You have 4 working groups discussing the theoretical aspects, siting and design, discussing on how to, where to put the waste in the village and in which format, which design, and then environmental and health and safety on, environment health issues related to the repository, not only nuclear but also non-nuclear issues, and local development was on, if we get the money, what will we do with it? Will we give it to our citizens, or will we do something else with it? Then there are 2 project coordinators, 2 full-time equivalent, an executive committee and a general assembly. The executive committee and the general assembly were a lot of politicians, local politicians involved, and the people from the waste agency were both in the general assembly, executive committee, but also in the 4 working groups. So they were present in all the structures of the partnership. And these working groups and this executive committee, they had monthly meetings during 4 or 5 years, so it was really demanding methodology for the local inhabitants. But they really did this process, and so this is a short, very short introduction to the partnership model, but I think it has a lot of strengths. This partnership model. One of this is that this layman, these were farmers and local workers, but also engineers. It was a real mix. They created a very broad basis, and because they were working such a long time and at such an intensive level, it really became their own project. They got the ownership of the project, pride, being member of the partnership and representing their community, and also they really helped the acceptance of the project in the community, because they were local people selling their repository and their concept of their repository. I already said that they really did in-depth discussions. If you take the example of Wessel, it's a community of 8,500 people, and there were 65 people involved in the partnership. So almost 1% of the community was involved on a monthly basis, on a very technical basis. And they really, and that's, in the beginning I said, for me this is technology assessment. They really did adjustments on the proposal of the nuclear experts. The nuclear experts from NIRAS, they had their concept, and they came with their concept. And the people from the communities, they really brought other expertise in. Expertise from their jobs. There were civil engineers who were experts on concrete, and these concepts use a lot of concrete, so they really put very technical input. They gave really technical input. On the other hand, there was a lot of local expertise, and there was a discussion on the possibility of the communities chosen right now, that they are not, I think you said it, that they had this not the capabilities of being involved in the discussion. Here you have farmers who really gave very useful information on transport or water, on weather, on habits of the local people, and it was very, very useful to make the siting and also to make the further development of the concept. So this is really assessment of a technology. Moreover, it's also a very good discussion on ethical issues. Sometimes discussions on technology assessment are done by discussing values. I more prefer openness, but openness is if you have too much openness, you have security goes down, and then you have a discussion on these two. Here you had really values that were discussed, but by discussing technical aspects. And I give two examples here. The people of NIRAS, of the waste agency, they came up with the concept and with the basic idea of containment. We have this waste, and we must do everything not that it goes out to man and to nature. So this protection issue was very, very important. For the people in the partnerships, control was very important. They said, yeah, this is on low-level waste, it's 200, 300 years. Even in this period, technology will increase. There will come a lot of new insights. How can we know certain that? How can we be certain that after 100 years there is no leakage, and we can, if we use the techniques of within 100 years, we can be very, probably we will be much, there will be better security if we can control better. So there was this, for me, two values, the containment, the security versus the control. And there was a discussion. They had the right to adapt the concept, and they wanted a basement under the storage. Of course, the experts said this is crazy because you have hundreds, millions of tons. It's enormous for this weight, for the nuclear waste, and then all this concrete. So this is impossible. And they had discussions, and they end up with a kind of basement. The first proposal was that someone of 2.20 meters with a helmet could walk very easily, but now they have a very small basement. There is possibility of control, and there is also a good level of protection. But this is a really assessment of a technology. Another one where they discussed values is they also could propose, we want waste in our community, but not on a surface, but on a geological disposal. But then they discussed price. They didn't have to pay it themselves. Of course, if you put it in a if you put low-level waste in a geological disposal, it's from a intuitive point of view, it's safer. But they said no, we don't want it because the price is much too high. So we want a surface disposal. So they discussed price versus security, and they decided for something that was in their disadvantage. If you look at it from a very, from the outside. So this is for me also a strength of the partnership process, that they really discussed ethical issues by means of technological aspects. Also, the participation process is a very quick decision process. Often it's said that it slows slows down the participation, the decision-making process. But here, in 4 or 5 years' time, there was a decision on the siting, whereas before, in the non-involved decision-making process, they had 25 years of discussion, and there was no result. So I think this is an example that in some cases, participation is a much quicker decision-making process than non-participative decision-making. It was also a learning process for both the experts and the inhabitants. The experts came with a very technological aspect there, and they were really aware that the societal aspects and the values were also involved in their technological developments. And also, of course, for the inhabitants, they learned a lot during these 4 years, and I will call them semi-experts. They really became a kind of expert. A last thing, which is also a strength, I think, is the complementarity to political decision-making. It's also referred to also this morning. You have a political decision-making. Next to that, always next to that, you have technology assessment if you involve the public. But here in this process, the technology assessment, the results were really closely related, because the politicians were also in the partnership process, and there was this idea of added value, there was this money, so this made really the link between the classical political decision-making process and technology assessment, the partnership model. Some curious observations. I already mentioned that only the nuclear communities volunteered. I think it's logical because you have a familiarity. And if there was no solution, most of these communities remained with their waste anyway. The waste is stored in these communities. If there is no solution of whatever community, they have their waste and nothing happens. So then they can better step into this partnership model and have their discussions and point their opinion. The effect of the partnership model was that it changed from NIMBY to PIMBY, because there was also money involved. One of the people once said, laughingly, we copy your project, but we lower the price. And this was for me a very symptomatic. They all wanted, not only because of the money, but also because of the the commitment to the concept. They really wanted the waste repository in their community. And then, as I said, the people became semi-experts, which had a question in how far are these people involved for 4 years on a monthly basis representative for the non-involved people, neighboring people in their community. Because they had a large commitment to their project, but they also became, their thinking became more like the thinking of the experts, and there was you felt a tension between the people not involved in this partnership model of the same community and the people who were involved. And then it was, in this case, it was fixed in the beginning by university and the waste agency what the process would be. And this was also, sometimes it was questioned. We started like this, and 3-4 years later, maybe we should do it like this or that. But it remained very fixed. So I can imagine if you do it elsewhere, that you make a discussion on how will we, as a partnership, how will we organize our process. And then, so I had some strengths, some curious observations, and now I have 4 what I call discussion points. And the first is this point of the added value. There was quite some money. There was never said how much it would be, but it was quite some money. So you can ask, is this bribery or not? And what was strange, in some other countries there was they really said, we don't want this money because for us it's bribery, but what we want is involved people, involved civilians. We want expense allowance. If I want to come to your to the working group, but I have to look for a babysit, I have to pay it myself. In some communities, in some countries, these kind of things like transport expenses and so, they are paid, and here they were not paid. So there's this question, what do you give in this process to the civilians, expense allowance or a fund for the whole community? A second point was raised quite often in the partnerships and in the discussion of the working groups was the need for critical independent expertise. Belgium is a small country, and you have a research center, and you have the Federal Agency for Nuclear Control, you have the Institute for the Waste. But a lot of experts and a lot of managers, they work for 5 years in one and then 3 years in the other. So they all know each other, and the people really felt this. If we invite a research institute, they react very familiar with the others, and how can we as civilians know that this is critical expertise, yes or no? And then I refer to the RISCOM model, whereas you've not referred to in your speech, but as I heard here in the Czech Republic, it was also discussed sometimes. It's a model from Sweden, where they say if you have a participatory process, there are 2 actors that are very relevant. And one is what they called the stretcher. And I really believe in scientific progress, and I think that the real strength of scientific progress is that you have a scientist who thinks A and another one who does not agree and tries to build another laboratory to disagree with him and to get his point fixed, and that the first scientist A, is wrong. And this creates a lot of scientific progress. In the nuclear field, you have the system of peer reviewing, etc. But the question of the citizens was really, when is there a scientist coming here and saying that everything what the other scientists said is not all wrong, of course, but that there are points that are where the one scientist does not agree with the other scientist. And it happened very little, that there was a scientist invited, he said some things, and that was it. And then they were looking for, is this the real opinion? Are there independent experts? And they couldn't find it, and there was a real concern for the involved people. So from this RISCOM model, you could say we will look in one way or another, but it's very difficult, of course, to organize a disproving group of scientists really in favor of scientific progress. Maybe it's possible on the European level, but of course this is just an idea for thought. The second point coming out of this RISCOM model is the process management. In the Belgian partnership model, it was NIRAS, the waste agency, who was the process manager. So as a process manager, they were responsible for the process and also for the outcome of the repository itself. And from the RISCOM model and from other models, it's often stated that if you have a delicate discussion, it's better to have a process manager who is responsible for the outcome, for the process itself, but not for the outcome. Whether they in these 4 communities or these 3 partnerships, whether they could realize 3 yes, you can come to us, or 3 no, for the process manager, actually it should not be a problem. You should say, I'll take care that the discussion is done in a good way, on a good level. And so I think that if you want to do a good technology assessment process here in the partnership model, it's good to have an external process manager. That waste agency plays the role of responsible of the waste and says if there are some ideas that are really not acceptable from all kinds of scientific or other reasons, that they can say no. But on the other hand, that if it is within these boundaries, that it's the process manager who says how the process has to be done. And the last point, and as I said in the beginning, my conclusion is the strengths and the weaknesses are in the local approach. This model involved in a very strong way the local people. As I said, in the Dessel case, it's almost 1% in a very intensive way. But of course, in the discussion on the siting, there were a lot of questions which had nothing to do with the local situation, but with a much broader scale. And there was no possibility to discuss them in a participatory way. So in this RISCOM model, there is a proposal to do a participatory process on different levels, on the level which is important for the people themselves. Here, in the participation case, it was really on the area, what I call here the area level. So there was the debate on the concept and on transport. But when they went to siting, they made the same mistake as the politicians do on the national level. They decided there is a good location, and it took quite a long while before they went to the real people there living, who had really the repository in their real backyard before they went there. So I think you have to do this discussion for the siting and the concept on the level of one or some communities. But if you go to the really siting, you have to have an intense discussion with the people themselves who have the repository on their land, and you have to have next to that, a national debate on liability of the waste, insurance, financial funds, secrecy, quality control. A lot of points came up in the discussions and are questions in the Belgian debate on nuclear waste, but did not have an answer and a participatory discussion in this partnership model. And of course, even broader, you have the energy debate where you can have even more discussions. So, conclusion, I think it's a very useful method, and I think as I heard the case here, there are some ideas that can be used, transformed and can be used. Others, I think personally, will not be able to be copied. It is time consuming, but it still is quicker than a block of a decision-making process. And I firmly believe that you can have an even more in-depth discussion if you have a stretcher, a guardian, and you take care of your recursion levels. Thank you.